Hi all, welcome to Application Station Fix My Game. Today we'll be answering a question stolen from Saiku's Polyrealm. How can I add one texture above another? I have a 2D ore texture and I should change it when it breaks a bit. Okay, so basically how we are going to do this is by creating a surface shader and overlaying the two images one on top of the other. To create this Minecraft style block breaking effect, we're going to swap images as the damage on the block increases. When you open up the shader, it comes with some sample code from Unity, which we will use as our starting point. The first thing we're going to do is create a variable for each of the three crack images and the damage, so we can see it in our inspector. Make sure your variable names are something easy to remember, because we'll be using them later. Once we save the code, we'll go back to Unity and create a new material to apply our shader to. You can see in the inspector for the material that the four variables we created earlier are now visible. I whipped up some quick textures to use as the base and the cracks that form as the block breaks. You can take the easy way out and download the files from the Discord, which I'll put below. It's important to note that the cracked textures have a transparent background, so they won't hide the main texture below it. So we've got our variables assigned. Now we need to make sure they are available for the actual shader code to use. We'll redeclare the variables down in the subshader with the same names as at the top, so the subshader knows what variables we are talking about. The surface function tells the renderer how points should be displayed on the screen. Right now, it's set to find a point on the main texture that's mapped to a point on the object using the object's UVs and display the RGB color of that on the screen, tinted by the color value. It also edits the metallic, smoothness, and albedo, but we're not going to worry about that because this video is long enough as it is. Okay, first I tried just adding the RGB values from the textures together, but since my cracks are black, which is 000 in RGB, and if you add 0 to anything, it's about as effective as declaring war against a bunch of emus, which is not fair. I'm pretty sure it would also cause problems with other colors if you tried it, but it already didn't work, so I stopped there. To show the crack, I needed to replace the color with the color from the crack texture when the alpha was non-zero, and just use the color from the main texture where the crack texture is transparent. I chose to do this by decreasing the main text color's influence when the crack alpha increased, and increasing the influence of the crack text color as its alpha increased. Great! Now I've got a cube that's cracked all the time, which kind of answers the question. Okay, so now we want to switch between the crack textures as the damage variable increases. And that should be good. Oh. Okay, so it turns out when the damage is less than 0.25, the crack text is undefined, which breaks the shader. And there we go. Now we could just leave it here, but let's just jazz it up a little quickly. Let's see how to edit the shader from C#. First, we need a reference to the material in the block. From there, we can set properties on the shader. Note that the property needs to match the name we have in the shader. And now we can edit the damage property from our C# script. Let's add some finishing touches. We're just going to loop this over and over again and then turn off the block's mesh renderer so it disappears after the block breaks. Finally, we'll add a particle system to the blocks and match the color to each block. If you want the values for this particle system, I'll leave the values in my Discord, or let me know if you want a video on it. And we're just going to play the particle system after the block's mesh renderer is disabled. If you like this video and want me to produce more, please leave me a like. And as always, if you have any questions or a bug in your game, let me know and I'll see what I can do. Thanks for watching.